Hey everybody, Tim Albrecht here, and welcome to this week's episode of an Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, where we feature questions from you, the YFP community, to be answered by one of YFP Planning's fee-only certified financial planners. Before we jump into today's question, I want to give a shout out to YFP Planning's incredible team that makes this segment possible. YFP Planning offers fee-only comprehensive financial planning that is customized to the pharmacy professional. You can learn more and book a free discovery call by visiting yfpplanning.com. Again, that's yfpplanning.com. This week's question comes from one that was submitted via the website from Celine, who asks, is it worth getting an annuity? What are the pros and cons for someone in our income bracket? I think a lot about inflation in this time period, and I want to know if it's something that can truly last. I also do not 100% understand how annuity works. Do you pay a monthly payment until you retire, or do they take it from your 401k? If you get $100,000 per year until you die, I get that's a set income, but what if the investments on the money you give to a company does really well? Would that set income ever increase? Tim Baker, you and I were talking before we hit record annuities. We've talked about this in passing when we recently did our retirement planning series a month or so ago. We haven't talked about it in depth, something we'll do in 2023. What are your thoughts related to Celine's question?
Yeah, we probably need to dedicate, a whole episode, if not more, on this topic because we haven't really covered it much. When we talk about the different approaches to, building a retirement paycheck, we have floor-in, we have the bucket-in system, we have systemic. This is, and you can use a hybrid of these, but this is probably most closely associated with floor-in. The idea is that if you look at what the floor method does is like, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a paycheck, Tim, that covers your essentials. So, if we're working with a retiree and they have $5,000 a month in essential spending, we might get $3,000 of that from Social Security, which is essentially that's the OG annuity that's out there. That's the one that, it's inflation protected. Social Security is one of the most valuable things that a retiree has. But you can also basically buy a commercial annuity where you go out into the marketplace and you say, okay, I need $2,000 more of income that's going to come in for the rest of my life. And these are called life annuities. You can also get term certain, which is for a specified term. So you would say, I need $2,000 worth of income. So I would go out and buy that. So you would essentially take a lump sum. So you'd peel off, 200,000, 300,000, whatever the amount is. And that depends on the market with the kind of annuity, the riders that you're looking at. And you would purchase that $2,000. So now you have $3,000 a month coming from Social Security. And then you have another $2,000 a month coming from the annuity company. So where in the example, and again, just using, numbers, if you have $1 million in your portfolio and we had to buy, we had to spend $250,000 for that. Now your portfolio is 750, but you have that income stream, hopefully coming in for the rest of your life. So essentially, what annuity payment is like you're just buying guaranteed income. You're giving money to an insurance company, and you're saying, "This is my age. These are the features that I want. Give me this income for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or for the rest of my life." You can even have like a joint and survivor. So if I die, Shay continues to get that payment, when I pass away. So lots of moving pieces here, but this is one of the main, when they've done studies in terms of like what an advisor can do to help a retiree couple, there's lots of different strategies: the Social Security claiming strategy, the dynamic withdrawal strategy, tax efficiency, your total wealth asset allocation, liability relative to optimization. And then the last one is annuity allocation, which makes up 3.8% of that 37% benefit that an advisor gives to a retiree to kind of maximize their retirement income. So the idea here is, what are the pros and what are the cons of this? So as I said, Social Security is the OG. So that provides an inflation adjustment annuity guarantee by the government. And like I said, there's lots of different types. So you could have a term certain. So some people use annuity systems to, if they say, okay, I heard YFP talk about what deferring Social Security is a good bet for a lot of people. I need to defer. So I'm 65. I want to get all my Social Security credits, the premium credits. I want to defer to age 70. So I might buy a 5-year term certain annuity that's going to give me, the replacement until I get there. Life annuities, that's what a lot of people think of as life annuities. So I buy it at age 60 And then if I live to age 105, it pays me out for 45 years. But I also could, buy it at age 65, and I might pass away at age 75. So it only pays me for 10 years. So a lot of people, they have that, is this actually a good investment? There's immediate annuities. So like you'd give an insurance company that money, and then within 12, essentially 13 months, you would basically annuitize or collect payments. There could be deferred, where you give the insurance company money, but then you don't collect payments for maybe another 3 or 4 years, and that allows you maybe a higher payment. You have variable annuities, which are typically tied to securities, so investments. There's lots of different types of annuities out there. Now, the question was asked, so I want to address like the pros and cons and then some of the tax stuff. So the pros and cons, like the pros here is that one of the main things that retirees worry about is like, am I going to run out of like money in retirement?
Yes.
So annuities defeat mortality risk. So the client is essentially given a stream of income for as long as they live. So that is one of the big things. Annuitants might also enjoy a mortality premium. So those who have long lives will benefit from the pulling of assets from those who have a short life. So that's what I was just talking about is, if you typically have a history of living a long life, then you would be a good person to buy an annuity. If you have a history of parents or aunts and uncles or your grandparents die at a young age, maybe not so much. I will say that there are annuity products that you can get return of principal. So you might say like, or at least, pay out X amount of years even after the annuitant dies. So there's all these little design features that you can get on annuity to make you feel better about giving up a sum of money for, an income stream. Annuities typically, Tim, will suit people who have lower levels of risk because it eliminates the volatility of investing the client's assets. So this is not necessarily the case for a variable annuity, which has like an investment component. But a lot of people will think of like, okay, well, I don't want that sure bet. I'm going to bet on myself.
Yeah.
And basically, and it's definitely overconfidence, but they're going to say, I'm going to bet on myself and invest my money and withdraw it in a manner that, kind of provides the same benefit that annuity does. They're looking at the insurance product, the annuity, as too conservative. And they're thinking, okay, in the market, I can do my thing and then pull that money out as I need it. So a lower risk tolerance is typically for someone, or the annuity is typically for someone who has a lower risk tolerance. Another benefit is that this can be framed more, annuities can be more desirable if it's framed in a consumption standpoint versus like the investment frame. So, and what I mean by that is that from a mental health perspective, which sounds crazy, but a lot more people are talking about mental health in retirement. But from a mental health perspective, there is some stress that if you go from $1 million to 900,000 to 700, 500, like as it kind of, scales down over time,
right.
Like you get stressed about that. Whereas you almost have like one hit at the beginning with an annuity. So you go, all right, I have $1 million. Now I have 750, but I have this stream of income. So I have a check rolling in and it kind of protects, because I have that check rolling in, it protects that 750 a lot better or a lot more sustainably over the course of your retirement career. So from a mental health perspective, there's also some benefit.
Especially, Tim, when you see, we talk a lot about this, that we focus so much on the accumulation. Your whole career, obviously market volatility, you might see some dips here or there, but your whole career, you're seeing this upward trend. And then there's the psychology of the spend down, right? It's a really important point.
Yep. And the last thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is that, an annuity can prevent a client from consuming assets too quickly. So you have that, you're kind of moving, assets from the investment category really to the insurance category, which is, annuities are an insurance product. And this can kind of prevent excess withdrawal risk. So that's spending down the portfolio too quickly or in times where, the portfolio is distressed. So those are some of the pros. Some of the cons, I would say, is that clients do lose liquidity because they've given up a lot of control and management of that portion of the assets that are annuitized. So it's like, okay, I'm taking 25% of my portfolio and I'm handing that over to an insurance company to manage for me and to give me that income stream. So for a lot of people, liquidity is an issue. You lose the opportunity to essentially bequest assets to heirs. So again, if I had that $1 million and I die 5 years later versus if I have that $1 million and now it's 750,000 and I die 5 years later, what I can give my heirs is a lot different. It's definitely a poor investment if the client dies young. You give up the investment control, as I mentioned. The annuity could also be redundant, Tim. So, a lot of people, if they're doing what they should be doing on the Social Security front, they might not necessarily need an annuity. Social Security could cover basically your basic, expenses and what you need to kind of keep the lights on. Annuities can be overpriced. They're typically performing better these days because interest rates have gone up. So typically in a low interest rate environment, annuities can be tough. Some clients can see annuities as a longevity gamble when they believe that they will not live long enough to get their money back that they put in. And it's irrevocable, meaning like once you send that check to the insurance company, there's no take backsies. Although I think there is, a lot of them will have, things in the contract that you can get out of it or make a decision. There are some things that you can claw back. So a lot of moving pieces. The last thing that I'll address is that the tax perspective. So depending on how you purchase the annuity, it's typically with like qualified money. So this could be, from a 401k or from an IRA. So it has those tax advantages. It's essentially taxed the same. So if it's purchased with qualified money, then when that payment gets to you, it's taxed. If it's purchased with essentially after tax. So if you have $1 million in a brokerage account and you peel off that, like it's already been taxed. So you might get taxed on any type of like earnings, but you're not going to be taxed on like the basis, twice. So, and the same thing you would have if you were to draw the money from an annuity before 59 and a half years old, you have the 10% penalty, the same as the other one. So it kind of follows the same rhythm of, a 401k or an IRA. The last thing I would say is that a lot of like 401ks, you can annuitize. So most people will take, they retire, they have $1 million in their 401k. They'll roll that over and kind of like take the lump sum and roll it over. You can, a lot of retirement plans do have an annuity payout option. So instead of you getting that $1 million, you would essentially annuitize it. And based on your age and what's going on in the market, they would say, all right, we're going to give you $800 a month for the rest of your life. And essentially what the retirement plan does, they go out into the market and purchase it for you. So they're basically, kind of the person that kind of gets the annuity in place. So yeah, so lots to go. I mean, that's kind of the high level stuff. Most people, if you're, annuities are typically for, people that are approaching that retirement phase. So if you are in the accumulation phase, as you and I are, Tim, and you're trying to, amass assets, this is really not for you. It's typically for people that are, approaching retirement or, are looking at strategies to maybe, bridge to get to Social Security, or, they want, at the end of the day, come hell or high water, I want, this from my Social Security paycheck and this from a commercial annuity that's going to give me X amount of dollars per month, regardless of what happens in the market. And, that's typically what you're looking at for an annuity purchase.
Tim, great stuff. And we're going to jump into this in more depth. Obviously, a lot more we can unpack. We'll do that in an episode or two in 2023. And if folks didn't catch the retirement planning 4-part series that Tim and I did back in September, that was episodes 272 to 275. We'll link to that in the show notes. This fits so well into that discussion. Specifically, one episode, Tim, we talked about building a retirement paycheck and that idea of, obviously we're spending most of our career in accumulation. And at some point, we've got to replace our paycheck with our retirement income, whether that's a combination of Social Security, annuities, employer-sponsored plans, IRAs, brokerage accounts, et cetera. How do we do that? And this, again, you mentioned the tax piece, is yet another great example, one we talk about often, where if I'm looking at purchasing an annuity, I want my financial planner and I want my tax professional in the room with me to kind of help navigate the strategy of this. Because I think one of the things that you highlighted so well is options can be a good thing and options can be a challenging thing, right? And here, as you were talking about all the different types and terms and different options that we have on annuities, that can be good if we're planning well and we know exactly what we're trying to do and how this is going to fit in as a piece of the broader puzzle. But if we don't, it can become overwhelming and we may end up with a product that's not necessarily, a great fit. So again, I think this is another good example where I want, a couple of people in my corner helping me out as we're looking at how does this fit in with the broader financial plan.
Yeah, it's a big decision, right? Like we talked about, it's kind of irreversible. So, if you part ways with the, that sum of money, it's difficult to unwind that. Yeah. So, I think having someone in your corner that, knows what they're talking about and knows your goals and your balance sheet and your tax situation, I think is huge. So, and I think that's why I think sometimes people, even though it's the best thing for them, and I think would give them a lot of peace of mind, they shy away from it because of the enormity of the decision.
Yep. Yeah. Tim, I've been keeping a running list of t-shirt ideas for Tim Baker saying. You added a new one today. So Social Security is the OG annuity. So we're going to bring that one back.
Yeah, that's off the top. I think it's the first time I've used that. So
that's good. It's coming back. It's coming back.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Great stuff. And Celine, thanks so much again for taking time to submit a question to be featured on the show. As a small thank you, we're going to be sending you a super comfy YFP t-shirt. For those listening, you can submit your question. We'd love to feature it on an upcoming episode. Few ways you can do that. You can go to yourfinancialpharmacist.com. From there, you'll see a button at the top right where you can ask and submit your question. You can also send us an email, info@yourfinancialpharmacist.com, or you can record your question by visiting yourfinancialpharmacist.com/ask YFP. As we wrap up this week's episode of an Ask a YFP CFP segment, an important reminder that the content in this podcast is provided for informational purposes only, is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment or any other advice. For more information on that, you can visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/disclaimer. Thanks so much for listening and have a great rest of your week.